All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our breakout session today. We're thrilled to be a first-time sponsor at SUSECON this year and excited to chat more about our partnership with Rancher and SUSE with you. We're now bringing together two best-of-breed open source organizations that are empowering the open source community and our customers to build, secure, scale, and deliver applications on Kubernetes wherever they're being deployed with ease of use, simplicity, portability, and performance without vendor lock-in. In today's breakout session, we'll be having a panel discussion on how the open source community and organizations around the world can simplify, secure, and scale their Kubernetes deployments with NGINX and Rancher. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce your panelists for today. Hailing from Eugene, Oregon, NGINX Solutions Architect, Dylan Turnbull. Next, gracing us from the beaches of San Diego, California, we have Product Management Engineer for NGINX Ingress Controller, Jason Williams. And last but not least, your MC for today, myself, Alan Chun, Strategic Alliances Manager for NGINX. Now let's kick things off. Microservices, containers, and Kubernetes. Everyone is talking about it, and every company is looking at how to implement Kubernetes. So how do you get started, and how do you choose a platform of choice? Dylan, why don't you go first? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think when I'm considering the different K8s distributions that are out there, I'm looking at a number of different items. I think first and foremost for me is going to be ease of setup and installation. I mean, part of the process is getting started, and if that process is arduous, I'm probably going to kind of put that one on the back burner. The next thing I kind of look for is day two operations and monitoring capabilities. So, I mean, obviously, as I'm bringing things up, I want to be able to look inside the cluster and tell what's going on. So I look for support for those solutions. High availability, disaster recovery, also two big ticket items as far as I'm concerned. The ability, there's no system that stays running forever. So having an HA configuration, and then on top of that, a rock solid disaster recovery plan, especially one that might be built into the solution itself, is of paramount importance to making that my top choice. I look for support for networking tools as well as popular storage tools like Longhorn. And then above all that, I like to know that whatever I'm going to choose is going to lock me into a specific vendor. So I'll put a high degree of emphasis on if that solution has support for both hybrid or multi-cloud deployments. And then on top of that, because of a lot of the today's modern applications make heavy use of identity and access management, having built-in tools that will allow me to take care of that part of the puzzle are also our top priorities. And I think last but certainly not least is I'm going to look for a solution that has some sort of enterprise level support option for me to leverage.
Thanks, Dylan. Jason, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Dylan. I mean, there's multiple providers out there, and all the things Dylan said are super important, because if you really think about it, you're putting all your applications into an ecosystem provided by a cloud provider. And so you have to have a lot of faith and trust in stability of what that provider is going to give you, as well as tools to manage, just like Dylan said, because you need that level of control and capability to run your Kubernetes infrastructure. So it's a very important decision. A lot of times it comes down to, you may already have an existing relationship with a cloud provider, or you need to have more than one from hybrid cloud deployment that suits your model, your requirements. And so from the NGINX perspective, we're agnostic, and we're going to work across all those providers, because we're just software. And so, that's the nice thing about this, is that we're portable. So you basically pick up from one provider, move us to the other. Outside of small platform provider changes, NGINX is going to be the same. So those are like Dylan said, those are the things that you really want to think about when you make your decision on where you want to set up your infrastructure, because you're going to be it's going to be a very important decision.
Thanks, guys. I mean, we know agnostic tooling and portability is top of mind for many of our open source community users and our customers. With, like you said, Jason, with the diversification of, hybrid cloud deployments and on-prem deployments as well, makes having consistent tooling absolutely important for scalability and performance, which is the beauty of our two organizations coming together. So next question, why are we so excited about our partnership with Rancher SUSE, and what makes the Rancher platform so special? Jason, why don't you kick things off?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of really great things to think about. If you think about where NGINX and Rancher started, we were both open source companies. NGINX started, 10 plus years ago, started out as an open source project, evolved into an enterprise product that's widely deployed across the globe for multiple different capabilities. And the same thing true for Rancher SUSE. Very strong open source proponents and advocates to the community, which ties right into our lines as NGINX, where our roots were started, if you will. That's how we got started. So I think those two commonalities make for a really good relationship, because we both believe strongly in open source and giving back to the community.
That's right. Dylan, what do you think?
So I guess the way I would go about answering that question is kind of thinking back to a little over a year ago when we started looking at the Rancher partnership, and the journey that we were on to try to add that into the Rancher catalog was something that we knew when we started. We knew nothing. I had never really used Rancher. I was unfamiliar with it. So the learning curve from getting from knowing nothing to being up and running was so smooth that I think that was a big, that was when I knew that this partnership was going to be a fantastic choice. And then all along the way, as we started to take our existing Helm charts and then convert those over into Rancher charts, which ultimately would make it into the Rancher catalog, we got plenty of help from the folks at Rancher and support, and then the ongoing support when we were publishing the blogs and then bringing this thing to market was phenomenal. And then, of course, all along the way, the just general ease of use of the Rancher solution, from the manager to the RKE cluster that we use to kind of test it and deploy it, all those things were a fantastic experience, which harkens back to what I talked about earlier, which is ease of use and the tooling that we have available. So it was at that point that I knew that this was going to be a fantastic partnership. And then it has only continued to get better with the recent acquisition of Rancher by SUSE. We've had an equally good experience working with the folks from SUSE as well. And I'm really excited to see what's coming up with the next releases of SUSE and Rancher in the future, and how our NGINX Ingress solutions are gonna work in those environments.
I mean, I think you guys bring up some very good points there, right? I mean, there's a reason why NGINX is being leveraged across 450 million websites across the world today. And Rancher has the same following with over 35,000 open source users that find such value in the technology and the platform. And now that we're both part of larger enterprise organizations like F5 and SUSE, we're bringing the best of breed open source technologies to the enterprise. Which is a great segue to the next question. So as you guys mentioned, as NGINX open source has become synonymous with the highest performing lightweight web server, ADC, API gateway, reverse proxy, etc. As you guys know, why has NGINX Ingress controller become synonymous with Kubernetes? And what are some of the differences in NGINX Ingress controllers that are out there today? Jason, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think if you look at the history of NGINX and where it came from, and it was to solve a specific challenge with the focus being speed and reliability. So that's how it was founded by the founder, Ingress. So I think if you look at that as where it started and where it's progressed over the 10 plus years, from a web server to a multiple different things, from load balancing, reverse proxy, cache, Ingress controller, I think that speaks volumes to the capability of the product, from functionality to speed and reliability. And I think I feel pretty confident that's a big reason why it's the out of the box Ingress controller for Kubernetes, because it's such a fantastic product. It's very good at what it does. We're very, very fast data plane, and that's what we want to focus on for our community and our customers. So, I think that speaks a lot. So, but you're right, there are 3 different versions out there today. There's the community edition version, and the community edition version takes the NGINX binary that NGINX F5 makes and the community builds on top of it. And that's available to our customers out there to be able to use freely. It's just completely provided by the community. So that's the first one. The second one, the other two I should say, is one's open source, and the second being NGINX Plus, which are both managed and maintained by NGINX F5. So, so it's different from the community because the community maintains us, but the open source and Plus are managed by NGINX and F5 together. And there are some differences, and I'm just going to show a couple quick slides to highlight the differences, kind of where we started and where we're going. So let me show my screen real quick. So if you look at what I have on screen here, this is your typical Ingress resource, which is how getting traffic into your cluster is so important, because you got to get traffic into your application. So this resource is Ingress, and this is what the bulk of the community uses out there. This is what comes with Community Edition, and it works, and it has some basic basic functionality that provides. So if we look at this, we have an Ingress with some basic annotations where we can define timeouts and so forth. We can do a redirect. If you come on the slash, we can send you to /coffee, what host it's responsible, and then the path that you're associated from a routing perspective. But a couple of years ago, we identified that this was going to be limited, because as Kubernetes continued to grow and applications continue to be the foremost for customers out there, we needed to expand our capability to provide more robust capabilities from a routing perspective at the Ingress tier. So what we did was we came up, I'm gonna bring this up real quick here. We came up with a resource called Virtual Server. And Virtual Server allows you to extend the capability even further from your Ingress resource. And a very, very common use case for this is cross namespace routing. So the example I've got here is this particular NGINX Ingress controller is accepting connections for this domain, api.example.com. And there's another component of this, it's going to be on the next slide, called Virtual Server Routes. And what this does is that we're saying here is that if a request comes into api.example.com/game/API, using cross namespace routing, we tell Ingress, okay, that particular request should go to this namespace, which is games-ns, to the application called games-route. Okay, and you can see if it was going to go to api.example.com/stacks/API, that goes to a completely different namespace and a different application. So the ability to have, say, a specific host serve different applications in different namespaces is almost becoming a mandatory requirement today to get that traffic to the right application. And that's where what we saw about 2 years ago where we went with this and we created Virtual Server. Okay. So then right behind this is the follow-up for this, which we call Virtual Server Route. So Virtual Server Routes rely upon Virtual Server. You cannot have a Virtual Server Route resource without having a virtual server. It has to be done there. But the way you read this is that when the virtual server accepted the traffic for this domain, we're telling it that this is the application that it needs to be sent to. So we saw on the first slide, it was going to the games namespace and this particular application called games route. And if you're familiar with NGINX configuration from previous jobs not involving Kubernetes, but just core NGINX configuration, this configuration is going to look very similar to what you've done in the past. So down below, here's my host, here's my upstreams, the name of my upstream, the service associated with this application, and the port. And then finally, what are we going to do from an action perspective? So when it comes into api.example.com/game/API, we're going to pass that, or basically proxy pass that to this upstream called games. And this is just a small snippet of what you can do with our virtual server route configuration. It's very, very customizable for things like active health checks. You can do proxy timeouts, all those things that you're used to in traditional NGINX configuration.
Yeah, so for me, it's going to be always about the journey, right? So as an architect, I'm looking at all the various stages of the CI/CD pipeline. And one of the things that both the upstream version of NGINX Kubernetes Ingress controller, as well as our open source and the Plus version, it's the same track no matter what you want to do. So whether if you want to get started in dev test and you just want to fire it off and kick the tires and get to know the Rancher solution with the existing upstream KIC version, you can get started with that. And then Rancher supplies the a fairly lightweight set of tools that are very easy to pull that from the cluster and then add in the OSS version if you're moving into more of a pre-prod environment where you want to have a little more speed. And as Jason would say, speed and reliability have always been hallmarks of the NGINX brand. And I would also add in there consistency. So as we're moving from upstream to OSS to plus, as we have more requirements added in, as we start our move from our CI pipeline into our CD pipeline, ultimately into production, I want to know that journey is going to be consistent across the board and have the same reliability and speed. And with our OSS and our plus versions, because those are natively compiled in C++, there are some speed gains that you get just by the nature of how we built the Kubernetes Ingress controller. And then on top of that, when I'm in pre-prod and I'm testing with a lightweight amount of production data, I can easily upgrade with a simple Helm upgrade or a Rancher upgrade path without having to change anything as far as the application is concerned. So just straight across to upgrade. So that kind of upstream to OSS to plus path is easy and seamless, as well as consistent across the board. And those things are important as we're kind of moving our way through the pipeline.
Awesome. I mean, easy and seamless and simple seems to be the common theme throughout our conversation.
And consistent.
And
consistency is a big deal. Yeah.
And as you guys know, it's never just about NGINX or Rancher, right? So why is the ecosystem of technologies and companies working together so important for successfully deploying microservices and Kubernetes-based applications? Dylan, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I look at it this way. So we kind of joke about Kubernetes being similar to a sandwich, right? So it's called the stack for a reason. So when you're getting started, I want to be able to start with a core set of technologies like the SUSE operating system, either Leap or Enterprise. And then I want to layer on top of that something like RKE or K3s. And then I want to add in Cert Manager and eventually an Ingress controller. And then, Prometheus, Grafana, and I'm building my stack as I go along. And the tools that Rancher and provides, as well as the way that NGINX is architected and how we've managed adding that into the Rancher catalog, allows that journey to occur. And the important thing to realize here is that these are 3 or 4 or 5 different companies that you're talking about. You've got NGINX, you've got Rancher, you've got SUSE, you've got Grafana Labs. Those are all different companies with different goals. And what I want to know as I'm building my solution is that those guys are working together and in kind of the true spirit of an open source set of solutions. I want to know that they're collaborating and that my experience is going to be taken into consideration. And because of that, because we at NGINX, as well as Rancher and SUSE, value that user experience, the partnership becomes of paramount importance ultimately to the success of the customers that are using our products. So for me, you can't do this in a vacuum. And best of breed solutions are a very valid architecture. And quite frankly, when you have best of breed solutions working together, that trumps almost any other solution in existence. So I would say that's probably for me why the partnership and the open source spirit of collaboration is incredibly important as an architect.
Those are some great points, Dylan. I know you've worked hard and long on the Rancher and Grafana partnership and how much that means to you. Jason, what's your take?
Yeah, I agree with Dylan. I think, partnerships I think are very important because each one of these partnerships with another company, they do something very well. So in our case, we want to focus on the data plane, right? That's our focus. We want to make it fast, efficient, consistent, just like everyone talked about. And then we know that we can partner with other vendors out there like Rancher, SUSE, like cert management, and forth, to do other functions inside the cluster that they do well. So we can absolutely work with that, but we're going to give you what we do best. That's a fast data plane. We're going to integrate with other solutions like Rancher, Grafana, Prometheus, all as well, because they do that very well. So there's no need for us to attempt to boil the ocean and try to do everything on our own. Let's just take advantage of what already exists out there and provide the users a very good experience, because like Dylan said, Kubernetes is complex, lots of moving parts, right? We don't want to complicate things. I mean, once you start complicating things, things start going wrong, and then things start to break, and then that's where you can get really, demoralized to a degree because stuff doesn't work. And if we can simplify any part of that via partnerships, that's what we want to do for our customers and our users. We want to give them a very, very good experience.
Awesome answers, guys. We really appreciate it. And how important is extendability of functionality within NGINX or other products as organizations are looking to deploy more complex environments or more complex applications? For example, Jason, what are some of the benefits and capabilities of NJS that our customers and the open source community loves about NGINX?
Yeah, NJS is, I think, one of those hidden secrets that NGINX has that's not widely known. And so, Lua is a very popular language used with NGINX, Open Resty. And, it works well. However, there are associated performances with that are well known in the community. So we wanted to provide that same capability to extend NGINX if there was something that we couldn't do natively. So the natural thing for us was to look at building our own solution, which we ended up developing, which was NJS. And it's basically JavaScript developed by NGINX and maintained by NGINX. It's not like a full-fledged version of Node. It's what we developed. And we took the same principles in mind with NGINX. It's fast, it's light, and it's portable. And really, when you deploy NGINX, it's a module. So in your line of loading up, you just say you want to load the NJS module, and then you can take all the advantages that provides, like you maybe need to manipulate a header request coming in or a body request, whatever it may be here. We've now extended that capability even further for you to maybe accomplish a very complex task that you can't do in, say, standard configuration.
Perfect. Thanks, Jason. So some things that what you guys are telling me is deploying Kubernetes doesn't have to be that hard, huh?
Nope, not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah. That's great to hear. I mean, I think the audience would appreciate that too. So, today, everyone, we know the deployment and management of Kubernetes is considered one of the biggest hurdles for folks looking to modernize their infrastructure. And if you or your team are looking for your next generation architecture, and perhaps you're already there, but looking for the best way to automate and manage it, now with Rancher and NGINX's Rancher's most widely used Kubernetes management platform, plus NGINX's market-leading production-grade Ingress solution, you're empowered to simplify the deployment and management of Kubernetes at scale with enterprise-grade solutions while focusing on delivering value for your customers. With that, we'll leave you with a slide in the event that some of you folks would like to try NGINX with Rancher. As Dylan and Jason mentioned, we are fully certified and are available on the Rancher apps and marketplace. Again, Dylan, Jason, it's been an absolute pleasure being on this panel with you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everybody for tuning in. For more information, feel free to please visit the links that are listed there. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks all.
Take care, folks.